As Americans head to the polls this week, what are some of the biggest issues motivating voters in the 2022 midterms?
We have a crisis in this country when it comes to immigration because of our open borders. Today in this country, you have estimates of 10 to 12 million people are living here illegally, but many people actually believe that number is much closer to 20, 25 million.
Well, for many years, I've been calling what's happening at the border an invasion. Over the past, 2 or 3 decades now, we have seen tens of millions of people crossing into our country without our country's permission. Back in the day, they used to call that a war. People used to literally fight over that.
Part of the immigration crisis stems from radical leftist policies. When Joe Biden took office, he immediately suspended deportations, began implementing catch and release, and overturned President Trump's Remain in Mexico policy.
And we saw the numbers in 2021. You had over 2 million people who were apprehended by Customs and Border Protection. Over 2 million in 1 year, actually 11 months. Converse with the last year under President Trump, there were less than 600,000 people apprehended. And the over 2 million was those who were caught, not those who tried to gain entry. It's absurd. I have described this open borders approach, and I'm calling it open borders because you cannot accidentally stumble upon 2 million people in a year entering the country illegally. That is no accident. I believe it's intentional.
It's hard for me to believe that people in the press haven't pushed back hard against the Biden administration when they say the border is secure. I mean, Kamala Harris actually said that to Chuck Todd over the weekend. The border is secure. As millions of people have crossed that border illegally, it's hard to even understand why the mainstream press, who have become totally complicit in these lies, why they don't push back, why they don't stand up and say, that's not true.
Those concerned with the crisis at the southern border note that many criminals are crossing into our country and often committing violent crimes.
We have to have policies in our country that enforce the rule of law, and borders are important for a reason.
When you start saying we don't need law enforcement, we don't even need a wall, we don't need borders, guess what? We found out, yes, we do need a wall, because not only are people coming here in this country for the best opportunities, there are individuals who are potential terrorists and drug cartels coming across the wall as well.
We really have no idea how many people have actually crossed the border. I've heard numbers of as high as 30 to 40 million people. I think ultimately the reason the Democrats do not want to close the border is because they want to destabilize the country. They want to cause unrest in the streets.
Crime has spiked across the board in America, with murder rates at the highest in decades. Looting and rioting has become commonplace, all while prosecutors are picking and choosing which laws to enforce, releasing dangerous criminals back onto the streets.
Well, part of the progressive movement is to embrace socialism. And what better way to do that than to cause upheaval in the streets, chaos in the streets? And I think we're seeing this lawlessness in just about every major American city now. What they're not telling you is who ultimately is causing a lot of this chaos, and it is in fact people crossing the border illegally. Look at the drug crisis, the number of people in this country who have been killed by fentanyl. This is just really, it's an epidemic. Well, this is coming from across the border with all of these drug cartels and the drug mules smuggling those drugs into the United States. We've got to do something about it.
A report by the Council on Criminal Justice found that in 2021, homicides increased by 44% over 2019, with some cities, such as Austin, Texas, seeing murder rates skyrocket by 86%.
Human beings have an incredible capacity for evil. And the role of the state is to keep order, to punish crime, and to keep its citizens safe. That's the role of the state.
Our nation was founded on one principle called the rule of law. And that is that all of us have to have some order. We need to wake up as a community and recognize the manipulation and the deception that is happening in our community by the progressives.
You're seeing more and more crime not being pursued or investigated, or people being arrested because of DAs and because of the pressure being put on police with prosecutions and things like that. So, I mean, there are consequences to all this, and the consequence is people are left safe. and people who are guilty are taking control of our streets. One of the biggest impositions on freedom that I can think about. If you're free to go out of your house, you can say you're free, but if you can't leave your home, you're not very free.
You're talking about defunding the police. Like, everyone knows that's crazy talk, but suddenly you're told, no, there's a new reality. It is because people have turned away from God.
Many voters are concerned about their children's safety. With gender ideologues pushing radical sex education and gender studies curricula on students of all ages, public education has become a major battleground.
We are on the forefront of a war because this trans movement is now an assault on the youngest of children at elementary school level.
Children are facing many dangers in public schools today. There are ideologies that are completely antithetical to a Christian worldview. You have gender ideology, you have dangerous ideas about school discipline, queer theory. There are so many things that are facing our children that really parents need to be aware that the education their children are getting is not the same as the education they got when they were in public school, perhaps in the very same building that their children are going into today.
This is happening all over the place. This is happening in a public school near you, unfortunately. This transgender ideology is really being pushed at every single level, and especially the public schools. We're seeing kindergarten classes teaching gender ideology and sexual orientation, being told that you can have two mommies or two daddies. From a Christian perspective, this is massively problematic. This goes against a biblical worldview. This goes against a biblical anthropology.
The LGBT caucuses and political movements are so ingrained in the school systems from university all the way down to preschool and elementaries now that they've created massive educational programs being pushed, by the way, by the Biden administration currently and minions below, to teach children with publications and illustrated examples of the most personal things about sex acts like masturbation. They're beginning to teach 5-year-olds now in the school systems.
The radical left seemingly thinks that parents should not have a say in their children's education, throwing parental rights out the window.
And I truly believe that they are our children. They are the children of our country, of our communities.
Parental rights are definitely under assault in schools today. Parents hear a lot maybe from their school about them being partners in school, but as a favorite group of mine likes to say, we don't co-parent with the government, right? The children are ours. They are given to us by God.
There's a sharp divide between the political class in this country, some who want to shut parents out entirely. They support the teachers union, they support the administrators, and they would prefer that they are the ones that nurture and groom their kids in a way that they see fit. And I think that parents are reacting to that. You're seeing an increased number of parents running for school boards. You're seeing school boards in some cases taking action where they want to keep the parents out.
America is at a tipping point, and it is vital for Christians to let their voices be heard at the polls.
Elections matter, elections have consequences, and I think we certainly saw that in the 2020 presidential race. The numbers are out there that clearly show Christians did not get out and vote. And if everybody who identifies as a Christian in America goes out to vote, then you're going to be able to make a true impact here.
I always go to Jesus' second great commandment. The first great commandment is we should love the Lord your God with all our heart, soul, and mind. And the second is like it, you love your neighbor as yourself. Now, how can Christians say that we truly love our neighbor in a consistent, holistic way if we are not engaging in these areas that affect our basic rights and our basic liberties? And so that's why I think every Christian has an obligation to vote, but not just an obligation to vote. We have an obligation to vote informed.
If they want to hang on to any semblance of righteousness in the country, they better vote. Because if they don't, they've basically surrendered their country to people who hate God, who hate the Scripture, who hate the creation of God, and want to supplant it with both environmentalism and government as the two-headed God to run this country.